Beep, 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 beep. Hello, good morning, Jester here. How are we? It is the weekend, it is Saturday. So I thought today we'd do a bit of free floating. I haven't got a particular bit of news to tell you about. I'm just going to see what comes out me God this morning because I'm in that kind of mood. You know what I mean? I'm such a rebel. So I hope you're all well. Right, first off, become a warrior teacher. Second off, join my Substack if you can, please, or buy me a beer if you can, please. You get to the point where you have to say that when you recognise, hang on a minute, I'm running out. So if you can do that, please do. That'd be great. If not, play along with Barry this morning because I just, one of those mornings. Anyway, I wanted to talk about the fact that I've been abused, right? I've been treated terribly. I've been treated appallingly. It's been an appalling attack upon me and my person. From yesterday, some wag in the comments who said to me, for God's sake, when are you going to dump the Valdoonican jumper? Absolutely, how rude. Right? For God's sake, dump. It was some off-the-cuff comment that they did not realise was an extreme and severe musical microaggression. So there I am. Getting ready this morning. Picked it up. And I felt guilt. See how it works? They set up a power oppression narrative and they used their power to oppress me. It was a musicological oppression, right? And if it was intersectional, it would come under, I don't know, middle of the road music oppression. So I've had to ditch that jumper. I can't put it on. I feel guilty. I'm letting the audience down. You horrible person being so abusive to me. Right, that was the first thing. Second thing was, here we go, I had a big rally yesterday. And then I had a big row yesterday. So I had two big rows yesterday. The first big row concerns an old chestnut. And one is going to have words with certain individuals and one is going to have to write some letters. Seeing as it was happening in a training course when all of a sudden that hoary old idea raised its head once again of unconscious bias. Oh, I can hear you. I can hear you deflate, like a bust blow-up doll. I can hear you deflate, okay? Unconscious bias. I thought, okay, this isn't happening. So I just kept quiet. I just thought, just let them do it. Just let them do it. So the conversation went on and on. And it was in an official capacity that this was used as unconscious bias. And then they had the cheek to say, we don't actually call it unconscious bias anymore. We've changed the name. Right, okay? So, you'll hear it heard called other things, like cultural awareness, because obviously unconscious bias has had a bad press. Right? And I just thought to myself, that's it right there. If it's a turd, you can call it a banana. It's still a turd. Right? It's just, that's how tapped they are. That's a good word, isn't it? Tapped. Bit tapped. Doodly dip. I like that one as well. Bit doodly dip. Away with the fairies. Mad as Hatter. All that stuff. Right? So there it is. It came up again. Unconscious bloody bias. Right? And I think it's about time that we put this to bed. Unconscious bias does not exist. Okay? And training it in businesses is a very risky thing to do because if I was in a business that tried to train me about unconscious bias, I'd sue your ass for invasion of privacy. Right? That's what I'd do. Unconscious bias is a dangerous, mad idea which assumes that all humanity is completely and absolutely entrenched in power and oppression narratives. That's what it's for, right? And it completely ignores the human novelty reflex, which is an extraordinary thing, the novelty reflex. We all have it, right? Because it's how we have, discovered and found interest and commonality with other cultures. So when I was in Egypt, swanning about, like Peter Ustinov in Death on the Nile, he strangled her, that kind of thing. And I was taken into the centre of Karnak by Hani, a mate of mine, who was working at the Egyptian Museum. I was the only little fat white man for miles, okay? And everybody was like, oh, what's the fat white man doing here? So they were all coming up and going, hello, who are you? Why are you here? Fantastic. And then I got taken for dinner and, unconscious bias, my ass. Stop poking around in people's brains, you bunch of mad nutters, right? I tell you what we need to start getting people to understand is that they might have unconscious leftism. How about that? Let's do that one, right? Now I'm not a hugely old Adolf. No, I'm not that direction, and neither am I over, Oh, comrades, pass the vodka. I'm not that direction. I tend to like to steer between it all because I think the idea of left and right is a 20th century idea that we've dragged by its sagging, jowls into the 22nd century. No, where are we? We're 21st. It's a 20th century idea we've dragged into the 20th century idea into the 21st century by its sagging jowls unnecessarily because, when you can do a poll on Twitter and 150,000 people vote, things are starting to look like, we better have a listen. It's just nonsense. But there we go. I think that's what we've got is unconscious leftism. Okay? So unconscious leftism works like this, the same as it does if you were somebody that was unconsciously supporting right. Yep. So, when the Nazi Party started in Germany, and it was all like, look at the lovely men in their brown shirts and their, how lovely. And you will recall that wonderful scene in Cabaret where the boy is set up singing, it's a lovely sunny day and all the people have got their beers, their steins in the garden and they're singing, oh, mother and fatherland, da-da-dee, oh-ba-dee, da-da-dee, and off they go, right? Yeah, we all remember that. Till he panned down the old guy's there looking at his beer and he doesn't stand up and sing like everybody else because he's seen it all before, right? The old guy's me, right? So that's what we need to look for now is unconscious leftism because people would have gone around, these guys would have gone around with a begging bowl going, support the National Socialist Party. Oh, yes, here, direct debit. Oh, yes, how lovely. Yes, you're gonna give us all jobs, right? They didn't tell you how, okay? What we need to now look for, which in those days would have been unconscious rightism, we now need to look for unconscious leftism. Because, there's a hole on the wall that says cash. You press the button, out comes a tenner. You go, Margaret, have you seen this? Unfortunately, what you don't know is every time you take a tenner, there's somebody behind that who shoots someone in the back of the head. We need to look for unconscious leftism. Unconscious bias is a leftist idea. It is a leftist idea that believes that human beings are incapable of good on their own and must be nudged by a larger authority in order to behave. Pure propaganda, behaviourist leftism. So what you need to look for is leftism. Unconscious left. Do you suffer with unconscious leftism? Call this number and we'll give you a centrist enema, and that will bring you back. So all we need to do with these leftist and rightist maddists, and there aren't many of the right, but there's plenty of the left right now, is we need to find some way of spinning them all round so that they're dragged into the centre. So essentially we need a nice big cultural washing machine with some, bold, and it's all over. Right, so, forget unconscious leftism. This is because I was mad about this yesterday. Second one, I got in a row about the word queer. So, as I described myself in the conversation, I said, the problem is, you see, with us pufters and shirt lifters, right? That's how it started. The problem is with us pufters and shirt lifters. And the person sat next to me went, queers, surely. I said, really? Well, you good listeners and watchers, do not have to go far to imagine that was a conversation that escalated rather quickly. Right, okay? So I thought we'd have a chat about it, right? Let's talk about the word queer. It's been reclaimed by a younger generation. That's what they say. Okay, we get all that crap. It's been reclaimed by a younger generation. So let's go through the reason why it hasn't. Okay, so here we go. Years ago, when I was, hanging around with my mates, and we'd be in some nightclub somewhere with all the rest of the pufters and shirt lifters, right? People would say, that's because you're a faggot. Well, you're a faggot. What do you think? Yeah, well, it's because I'm a pufter. It's because I'm gay. It's because I'm a shirt lifter. It's because I'm a pillow biter. I remember that one for a long time. Always a pillow biter. It sounds like a disease. What's it called? Pillow biter. Right, so that's what they'd say. But we'd say that amongst ourselves because we reclaimed the word. And yes, at the end of the 90s, we did reclaim it. We did to a certain degree. Go, oh yeah. We're queer, we're here, we're proud of it. Right, okay? Because that was the word that was used to degrade us the most. That was the word that was used to degrade us the most. Okay? If I was from Pakistan, and I was living in a British community, and people that wish to degrade my group as a Pakistani would have a word for me too. And if I was black and in the British community, people that wanted to degrade my individuality, they would use a word for me too. And we know what those words are. Right? And if I was disabled, there would be a word to describe me in a way to degrade me into a group session, into a group idea, which is of course the leftism again. Because a certain charity had to change its name to Scope. because the name it had before that became synonymous with insulting disabled people. And you would have seen, and I have seen, people who are disabled, comics, for example, make fun of the very words that we used to lump them into one category, and then to be able to abuse that category and to say that that category is funny, or say that. Now, I don't mind jokes that are, as ribald and as nasty as they come. I don't care. Fine, do it. I don't care a toss about jokes about gay people if they were faggot. I don't care, honestly. You're talking to a man. Think about this. You're talking to a man who once farted in a lift containing Bananarama. What makes you think I'm bothered about a long joke about being gay? So, there you go. That's what happened. We reclaimed certain words and went, yeah, we can use that word too. It doesn't make you big and it doesn't make you clever. But that is not what this is, okay? Because the idea of reclaiming the word queer or reclaiming the other words that I've mentioned, or not, because I'm smart like that, right? But you know what I'm talking about. Reclaiming them was you took away their power. You took away their power. And it was people who were actually fighting for equal rights because of their race, because of their disability, because of their ethnicity, because of their sexuality, right? Because they were women. It was people who were fighting for their rights were saying, we can say that word too. And in doing so, they were able to then say to the people outside, but you can't. I've seen my friends do it. I've seen, especially the younger ones, one of their mates will say, yeah, but Barry's a faggot. And they'll go, hang on a minute, you're a straight bloke. You can't say that, but I can. And I've known him for a while, right? So there's that thing about protecting. Once you've got it, it's yours. Don't you dare. Because it's done to disempower the bully. It's done to disempower the bully, right? That's how that works. We know this. It's not difficult to understand. That's the difference, see, is that what those words have done is you claim them back to shrink them. You claim them back to shrink their linguistic power. You claim them back to shrink their ability to hurt others. And that's why we did it. That is not what this is. Okay, so if you imagine reclaiming it back like that is the implosion, like when they do an explosion but run it backwards on film. Got it, contained it, doing a Doctor Strange. How it goes, okay? That's not what this is. Queer is the exact opposite. Queer is linguistic, meaning words, and ontological, meaning knowledge, napalm. The idea that queer exists, that queer as a word can be attached primarily to gay people, is in order to anchor queer theory in something real. And once they've anchored queer theory in something real, they can then call blue-haired, spicy straights and confused young women queer too. Then they can put more into their little queer cluster bomb until eventually the only thing that isn't queer is people who are quite happy to settle down, have children, get a job and do the job and do the do, right? That's what they do. Queer is not something that's been reclaimed by people in order to keep safe their individual mutable characteristic. Queer is something that's been thrown like a cluster bomb in order to spray as much damage as possible and to bring everything under that damage, under the word queer, in order to separate out people who are heterosexual. Because that's what queer does. It destroys the heteronormative. There is nothing reclamation-wise that is going on about the word queer. It is nothing to do with reclaiming, strengthening and making stronger. The word queer is nothing but destructive. It is literally linguistic and ontological napalm. It's designed to destroy. So to the young man who thought that he was smarter than I was last night, I hope that smack bottom you've got, still stings this morning when you wake up and think about what I said to you. Because I ain't going to stop till you get it, you twat. Other than that, it's the weekend. I don't know what I'm going to do, actually. I might tidy the house. I don't know. I mean, when you get times you don't do anything? I'm one of those times. I don't want to do anything. But yeah, I've got so much work to do. And I'm teaching the Warrior Teachers tomorrow. Right, go away. I've waffled enough. Right, I'll see you. Have a great weekend. It's great to talk to you. But Jester out. Bye.